Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Mike Cho, physical therapist. Hey, today we have a special guest, Dr. Dona Kim. She's a neurologist. We'll be back in a few seconds, okay?
HelloNote is a truly therapist-friendly practice management solution with integrated EMR that will enhance workflow, efficiency, and patient care. HelloNote reduces error and allows you to spend more time with your patients. It comes integrated with billing. Claims are generated once a note is completed. You can bill with one click and a patient portal, which streamlines the patient intake process. Beautifully engineered and cloud-based for easy accessibility, the software works on all platforms. You can access patient records from anywhere. We also offer 24/7 support. HelloNote is the practice management solution that you're looking for.
Well, we are back. I was just looking at my phone. If it's we're streaming live, I guess we are streaming live already. My Facebook friends and YouTube friends. If you're watching live, comment live. Watching on the replay, comment replay. Hey, we got a special guest for today. Obviously, it's Dr. Dona Kim. She's been here in our show for several times. She's a neurologist and a just amazing person. Then she keep on messaging me, hey, when are we going to go live? So here we are again. We're going to go live and ask her some crazy questions about obviously Alzheimer's, dementia, and everything like that. And today we're going to be talking about the cost of caregiving. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Dr. Dona Kim. Dr. Dona, what is going on in let me turn off that music real quick. What's going on in your area? How's everything there?
Good afternoon. It's pretty good. It's really, really hot in Houston, but yeah, good otherwise.
Well, it's pretty nice and cool here in Tennessee. You know, we what is it? What's our temperature? For temperature, it's pretty nice and cool. It's 78.
Oh my gosh, I'm very
It's
envious.
so nice, right? So I went outside, the breeze of the air and everything. But on a different note, could you please tell us what are the different costs that can be associated when we're taking care of loved ones with Alzheimer's and dementia?
Yeah, this is like a huge topic that I've been thinking about a lot lately, both in terms of what is happening in my own life and just the themes that come up repeatedly with the caregivers that we support in prognosis. I like to think about costs not just in terms of financial costs, although that's generally what people think about when they think about the cost of this illness. Um, Not just in terms of that cost in dollars, but that's very important, and it is something that I want to talk about explicitly. But also the cost in terms of the health of our loved ones, our own health, the social cost, for the person living with a disease, right? Because they become increasingly isolated as the disease advances. But even at the beginning of the disease, I think a lot of people do withdraw from social activity because they're ashamed of making mistakes. They can no longer remember things in the same way. People, I think, are not trained on how to engage with somebody who has memory challenges. And so I think also our response collectively to people who are struggling with this is maybe not the best. And so there is a social cost for that person. There's also a social cost for the caregiver, because the person who is caring for the person living with dementia also tends to become very isolated over many years, potentially. And that can be detrimental to their health as well. Right. So it also translates to health costs for them. And there's so much evidence of this in the literature of how that happens and why it is a public health problem. And then there is that the economic cost, right? That's the thing that I often stay away from, because I'm not a money person. I don't like to have to talk about dollars and think about dollars, but that's a reality for so many of us. It's that, like, this disease is expensive in terms of financial cost. I was the other day talking to my parents about, hang on one second. I was talking to my parents about the cost of having home health support, right? And right now, my mother is the primary caregiver to my grandmother. She's helping to support my father, who has mild cognitive impairment and has other health issues. And to support her, to support our loved ones, at home is not inexpensive. When we did the calculation, I think it was going to end up, for the level of support she might need, especially if she started requiring more help physically with managing either of those two people, it was going to be somewhere like over $100,000 a year, $100,000 to $200,000 a year, which is just completely untenable for, I think, the overwhelming majority of Americans, including for our family. And, then you have to make a different kind of calculation, right? Like, think early about how you're going to maximize the resources that you have, how you're going to leverage the people on your care team, the people who are friends and family, and their resources also, to relieve the primary caregiver, to make this whole journey more sustainable for everyone involved. Also to potentially tap into things that you might not have considered, for cultural reasons or maybe financial reasons before, but with planning, you might be able to access and you might be amenable to it, as this disease advances. For instance, nursing home care, which for many of us is something that we absolutely are opposed to, kind of in the abstract and at the beginning of this journey. And I think as it advances, many people, would like to have that option available to them, but perhaps they haven't planned in such a way that it is financially accessible by that time. So yeah, those are just that's kind of the breadth of things that I think about in terms of cost.
That's so true. That's so true. Did you clap for your lights or something? Or a pit?
No, my children were here and, having very loud conversation. I wasn't sure that it was audible.
I thought you were just trying to turn off that light. Remember those times you can clap for the lights,
Yes.
right? Well, anyway, I don't know if you have that, but yeah, we got to go back to what costs. What is the meaning of cost? It's basically something that is an equivalent. So it could be the cost of your time, cost of the actual money, cost of caregiving, the cost of that actual disease. And it's very important that you plan as early as now. If you're a caregiver taking care of a loved one that has Alzheimer's, dementia, or any kind of chronic disease, it's a long-term disease. And there's a question in our group: how long would this last? It just really depends on the severity of your loved ones. It could last a year, and it could last 20 years. It just really depends on how, of course, depending on the staging too. That's the reason why we talked about that too last time. So when it comes to the cost, there's also the cost of not taking action. If you're not taking action as early as now, it will be more costly in the future. So it's very important that you're taking action as early as now. Like what Dr. Donna mentioned. Planning about your long-term care insurance. That's very important. What else did she mention? Preparing at least savings on that, because it will be very costly. It's expensive. We personally have outpatient clinics, and Medicare requires physicians, therapists to do a fall screening every year, to conduct fall screenings, so we quote unquote prevent the Medicare, the recipients, to fall. And if you don't prevent them from falling, it's more costly for Medicare for them to go to the hospital, for them to go to the nursing home, versus us getting paid for the outpatient services, which is much way affordable or cheaper than going to the hospital. And same thing in managing your life, same thing in managing your loved ones. As early as now, get a long-term care plan, whatever life insurance that you have, and plan as early as now. Maybe someday Dr. Donna could bring in some of our key speakers about, financial planning. I've talked to some people like that too. So it's very important what we have that. So
yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. We actually secured our speaker on legal and financial affairs for our next event. We do monthly events for Prognosis that are live streamed on Facebook. I think the next
can
one,
we not stream it here too?
We could.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can let you know when we scheduled that one, but we have somebody, it's a lawyer here in Houston, an elder law attorney here in Houston, who's going to talk a bit about how you can prepare in advance on those issues to make sure that you're really optimizing what you have and saving as much as you can. I think too often we're seeing that caregivers who are overwhelmingly women, who often will kind of take a hit to their own professional ambitions, in having to care for someone who has this disease, that they are left financially devastated themselves at the end of the illness, where they've been caring for their loved ones for sometimes up to a few decades. They have not planned for themselves, right? And we know that people who have decided, who have chosen to bear this responsibility of care, that those people have health consequences, again, that will be very costly for them in terms of money, as well as in terms of, their physical and mental, emotional well-being. And so it's so important to think about this kind of multidimensional layering of the different kinds of costs of this disease, and how it impacts not just the person with the disease themselves, but the people around them. The one thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of the cost to the caregiver and specifically to their health is caregiver stress or caregiver burden. I think, coming out of the pandemic, thankfully, that one thing that we can appreciate collectively more than we had before and not stigmatize it so much is mental health. And mental health is so important and so interrelated with our physical health. And that, we have twice the incidence for people who are caregiving for loved ones with dementia. We have twice the incidence of depression. And that's correlated also with a lot of other physical, like chronic diseases, which again are very costly. Nobody, to my knowledge, is regularly following caregiver stress and caregiver burden. That's something that we do kind of religiously in our caregiver check-in groups. That's the first thing that we do at the top of the hour. We're like, can you spend 1 minute and fill out the survey? And it helps us to really appreciate like the value of the intervention that we are offering, which is connection to peers, connection to both moral and material aid in our spaces that we facilitate, right? And it's not just a free for all. We have people who are paid facilitators trained in dementia. That's super important, I think, to be aware of like what your burden is, what the level of stress is that this responsibility is creating for you. And then to be in conversation with people and witnessing people model the ways in which we care for ourselves, right? And we hold ourselves and each other accountable in that as well, because otherwise this is just unsustainable. You cannot be a single individual and care for someone with dementia throughout the course of their disease alone. You just can't do it. I mean, so many stories of caregivers who end up in the hospital themselves. My mother was in the hospital in February, as I had mentioned, I think on a prior interview, with her own like stroke-like symptoms. I mean, that puts her at risk for dementia, right? Like it's really pretty tragic, I think, when we're not thinking very proactively right at the beginning of symptom presentation in ourselves or our loved ones, right? Because I think the person to really kick this off is the person who notes the symptoms in themselves, right, to begin with. The problem is there is so much stigma and shame that person doesn't necessarily come forward, and they might be actually defensive when people outside of themselves start mentioning, I think you forgot that you already talked to me about that. Because there is so much stigma, I think. But the ideal situation is the person who notes those symptoms, they're going to notice those things before they become clinically apparent even. We have, again, literature that describes this. And they're pretty reliable. When they note a change, that's usually something real, right? As much as we unfortunately don't have the capacity to capture that clinically, that person and beyond that person, the people who are closest to them, they're actually pretty accurate in noticing something has fundamentally changed here. And as it gets worse, the likelihood increases that thing, if we're talking about cognitive symptoms here, that thing is dementia, age-related change in memory and thinking and speech and behavior and personality. Those things, if they worsen, if they become, functionally limiting, that's probably dementia, right? I mean, we have to rule out other things, but we want to become aware of those things as soon as possible. And maybe at the beginning, it's, it might be that we get ruled out for like a B12 deficiency or something that's causing some cognitive impairment that can be corrected. Yeah, maybe that's true. And that's great. But it's good to know in advance, like it could be this thing that can be very long and very difficult. And let me be aware of that. Let me be talking to people around me about that possibility without shame, without stigma, right? Just kind of matter of fact. And, how can I start mobilizing this support network that I'm going to need, that my loved ones are going to need to care for me as this disease advances?
That's so true. Thank you for pointing out that caregiver burnout. And A lot of people, a lot of our patients, we see actually the actual patient, the patient who has Alzheimer's, dementia, and then they're accompanied by their loved ones or the wives, like what you mentioned. Normally, the wives who's taking care of the sickly husband, and they have issues. They have medical conditions that hasn't been addressed. They are either hypertensive, their blood sugar is not controlled. So it's very important. If you're a caregiver right now, you got to take care of yourself too. It's called caregiving. You're giving care. Yeah, just like money, Dr. Donna cannot give me her money, but I can't give my money to my kids if I don't have money to myself, right? So you're giving care to someone. If you don't take care of yourself, you're going to really burn out. And burning out is not just the finances. We're talking about finances, right? Burning out is also happening to inside your body. Your sympathetic nervous system, your central nervous system. You got two types. There, you got your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system. When you're always stressed out as a caregiver, your sympathetic nervous system goes up, and then you're always in a fight or flight. You will notice this if you are a caregiver, you're always stressed out, your blood pressure is high, your blood sugar is high, your neck is tight, and you just can't sleep and everything. That's your sympathetic nervous system going up. And that's the reason why they have what you call parasympathomimetic medication to mimic your parasympathetic body to level it out. So it's very important that you, a caregiver or a care partner, what they call now, you need to go have yourself check out too. It's very important. Not just your loved ones. Go together, explain it to your doctor, your physicians, or nurse practitioners or PA. Tell them, hey, I'm stressed out. Then they will find you some resources that you can do. And that's where Dr. Dona Kim they have this support group, not just for the patient, but also for the caregivers. It's very important that we're supporting the caregivers. So, Dr. Dona, where can they find the support team? Can they access it online? Can they,
Yes. So
are
I'm
they
always
supposed to go to you
encouraging.
there? So,
Yeah, I'm always encouraging people to seek local support, because that's always the best in my judgment. Like, we live in this age of like Starbucks is everywhere, McDonald's is everywhere across the globe. And yeah, I guess that provides some kind of consistency. Like, we can have an expectation that is met, whether we go to a Starbucks in San Diego or a Starbucks in Tokyo. But I do think there is something that is really important about place-based support, especially with something like this, where those resources that are available to you locally are going to look a lot different in Seattle than they will in Houston. Those are the two cities where I split my time. And, state of Washington is very different in terms of health and social services relative to Texas. Yeah, I mean, Texas, we don't have Medicaid expansion. Very few families will qualify for Medicaid. Medicaid is actually essential on this journey, right? If you want to think about even the possibility of having access to nursing home care at the end stages of this disease, you may not be able to access that financially. In a state where we haven't expanded the window for people to qualify. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really important for people to realize that local support is vital. Now, that being said, unfortunately, there are too many places where people are not able to find local support at all in some cases, right? There are no support groups for people who are caregivers of those living with dementia. In some cases, there are support groups, but they are not culturally fluent, right? They are not language specific. The people who show up to those support groups are not from, kind of shared heritage where you find your own story reflected in the story of another person. And I will say the healing aspect of these support groups is so incredible, but it really depends on good facilitation, representative facilitation, and people in the peer network who reflect your experience. If you cannot relate to the experience of the people in your support group, it will have limited utility for you. Maybe they can tell you, you might want to plug into this local community-based organization or something like that. But I will say 70%, 80%, 90% even of like the value that I get as a support caregiver showing up to these support sessions that we offer virtually, right? It is emotional support. It is like that moral aid, right? Like emotional aid. And I think that is really important to help us keep going. There is also a lot of practical advice in there. And again, even the communication of practical advice, like you're likelier to trust that coming from someone who you relate to better, right? And so if people are looking for that, things that are more culturally relatable, that are maybe in a specific language that is not English, right now we offer also support sessions in Spanish. We will hopefully be expanding to Korean and into Chinese in the next 6 to 12 months. If you can't find that near you, and I will tell you that in most places you will not be able to find that near you, then you are welcome to join us. And what we are doing right now is we're trying to mimic that place-based support that would ideally be available to everybody by having support groups that are segmented by place. So right now we have a Houston Harris County group. We have one that is Skagit County, which is north of Seattle. And then we have a few people joining from all over the place because we don't yet have enough people from Richmond, Virginia, or from Trenton, New Jersey, or from Northern California. But as people start joining, that's how we're kind of going to be splitting people up. And we also have WhatsApp chat groups. So, if you aren't able to make it on a given Wednesday at 2:00, then you can join us on in the WhatsApp group if you have questions, if you just want to be heard on something that's happening. We will always comment. If the other caregivers aren't available to comment, our community team is always responding to what is happening in those chats also. So yeah, again, the importance of local support. Plug into your area agency on aging. I will say that is the biggest piece of advice that I give people all over the United States. That is a hugely valuable resource in most places. I am hearing from some caregivers that it's maybe not so helpful in some specific locations, but we work very closely with our area agency on aging in Harris County, as well as the Houston Galveston Area Council, which supports the surrounding 12 counties. So that's really important because they are going to immediately, they're the clearinghouse really for a lot of these community-based organizations that will be helpful to you managing all of the potential costs of this disease.
Thanks for pointing it out, Dr. Donna. So there are two things. So first, like what you mentioned about, finding that specific group, just like me. I grew up in the Philippines, and of course, I could speak English, but I could relate more to a fellow Filipino who has the same situation like me. Yes, I have adapted. We live in Tennessee. There's not a lot of Filipino here, and I can talk to and pretend to listen to all their stuff, but it's different when I have my fellow countrymen, a same situation, because our culture is totally different. Here in the States, most of the people there, it's okay to send the patients in or their loved ones in a nursing home. My culture, we literally keep our loved ones in the home, and it's just weird for us. And someone telling me, of course, I understand it. We're medical field, but if I'm not in medical field, someone telling me, why don't you just put your mom in the nursing home? It could hurt someone's feelings. So it has to be culturally sensitive too. And this is, a life-changing situation. The other part that she mentioned is about the, I forgot already. So number two,
the area agencies on aging, local support.
The area of aging,
Yeah.
Office of Area and Aging. That's very important. I literally, not attend every month, but I attend most of their meetings, and there's so much resources there that we haven't tapped into. And I'm already a physical therapist, and if someone asks me, "Hey, Dr. Mike, where can I find a person who can help us with the ramp?" I send them to the Office of Aging, Office of Disability and Aging immediately. So one patient will be like, "Oh, I have a hard time getting up from my recliner, Dr. Mike." Of course, we tell them, "Hey, get your legs stronger and move." But if they really can't do it, I tell them, go to Office of Aging and Disability. They'll give you a free a recliner that has a motorized recliner, stuff like that. So it's very important that you go there. Google it or search it, or if not, send me a message. Hey, where's my Office of Aging? It's easy to Google it, and you will have those offices in your area. Here in Tennessee, they changed it again, so it's called DDA now. It's called Department of Disability and Aging. In every big city, we have that here, where we provide different services, everything from home health to food to transportation, to obviously therapy services, whether you have insurance or not. A lot, medical services. They have like resources to not actual specialists, but nurse practitioners and PA that will even visit you in the home. Can't beat that. So again, Dr. Donna, I know you're a very busy person. Where can they find you? Do you have any website again or stuff so we could send them to your way?
Yeah, so that's Prognosis, as it's spelled on my background here, .com. Feel free to sign up for our newsletter there, send us a message to contact us. If you have some specific ask, you can drop it there. I do have this program that I'm doing with Mike, episodically. So you can always hop on and in, the live stream, drop a question that you might have. And when I'm not doing this with Mike, I try to do a weekly question and answer. So whether you submit that to me in the moment or in advance, I can try to answer those questions whenever I do this program. Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate you. But before we let you go, always remember the word FAST, FAST. Find people that will bring out the best in you, because you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. So whoever you hang out with, that's going to be you. If you want to be a better caregiver to your loved ones, hang out with the amazing caregivers in your community. Reach out to them. Go to the Department of Disability and Aging, or whatever, Office of Aging and Disability. They have different names in every state. So reach out. Go to them. Find people that will bring out the best in you, okay? Next letter is letter A. Take action. All this stuff that we're doing is not going to do me good. It's not even going to do Dr. Donna good if you don't take action. Take action. Go to their website, prognosis.com. Am I correct, Dr. Donna? Go there, reach out, subscribe to their newsletter, and it's going to change. Imperfect action beats perfect in action. If you have a loved one who's already, having incontinence, and you just leave them incontinent, guess what? They're going to have some UTI, some wounds there. So you got to change their underwear or briefs or whatever you call it appropriately, right? You got to take actions. And same thing in your life. If you're caring for someone right now, take action. Go to their website, learn, keep learning, okay? Next letter is letter S. Share and subscribe. The more shares, the better. Prognosis.com. Check them out. Of course, our website too. Jerry Hab Jackson, if you need physical therapy. And last but not the least is letter T. Is teach it. Why? Because when you hear it, you forget. When you see it, you remember. But when you're actually teaching it, just like what Dr. Don is doing, you're actually understanding it more. Again, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Be awesome. Be great. Be excellent. And we'll see you in the next episode of our we'll call it Prognosis Show. You have a good night. Thank you.
HelloNote is a truly therapist-friendly practice management solution with integrated EMR that will enhance workflow, efficiency, and patient care. HelloNote reduces error and allows you to spend more time with your patients. It comes integrated with billing. Claims are generated once a note is completed. You can bill with one click and a patient portal, which streamlines the patient intake process. Beautifully engineered and cloud-based for easy accessibility, the software works on all platforms